He was once the very image of cold intensity on the big screen. Ralph Fiennes, known for haunting performances like Eamon Goth in Schindler's List and Lord Voldemort in Harry Potter, didn't just chill audiences to the bone. He earned the deep respect of the film industry for a level of emotional depth that few could ever replicate. But behind that piercing stare is a man few people truly know. Ralph has long kept his distance from the spotlight, avoiding crowds, speaking little to the press, and almost never appearing in the media, while many of his peers showcase their fame and fortune. He leads an unusually quiet life, even though his net worth exceeds $50 million and he's been at the center of several high-profile romances. This is a man who rarely smiles in public, yet once wrote handwritten love letters every night. A performer who played emotionless killers, yet couldn't sleep after a single stage performance. So who is the real man behind these unforgettable roles? And why has he never wanted anyone to see that side of his life, early life? He grew up in a rented tin-roofed house in the English countryside, often giving up his portion of food so his younger siblings could eat. His teacher once told him, "An actor, that's not realistic." And yet, just a few decades later, Ralph Fiennes would become one of the most recognizable faces in world cinema, starring in Oscar-winning blockbusters and amassing a fortune worth tens of millions of dollars. So what happened between that quiet little boy and the man who could send chills through millions with just a look? Ralph Nathaniel Twistleton Wycombe Fiennes was born on December 22, 1962, in Ipswich, England, into an artistic family in rural Suffolk. His father, Mark, was a farmer and amateur photographer who often worked himself to exhaustion. His mother, Jennifer Lash, was a novelist and painter, but her books rarely earned enough to support 6 children. As the eldest, Ralph carried the unspoken weight of responsibility, growing up in cramped rental homes with leaky roofs and cold winds creeping in through the cracks. There were nights when Ralph lay awake, listening to the wind howl through the rafters, wondering if the family would be able to afford one more month's rent. But within those homes, art was the light that kept them warm. His mother would read Shakespeare aloud by the fire, her voice turning each line into magic. Still, could a shy boy from Suffolk really dream of something more? Ralph was an introverted child, more comfortable sketching on pieces of cardboard than playing outside. As the oldest, he quietly gave up food for his siblings, using drawing as a way to forget the hunger. But those drawings weren't just a hobby, they were glimpses of another life he longed for. At Salisbury School, Ralph faced the pressure of parental expectations and the doubt of teachers. Acting. That's not a practical path, they warned. Then, one day, opportunity arrived during a school play. Ralph stepped onto a worn wooden stage, heart pounding, when he delivered his first line. The room fell silent, and when the curtain closed, a teacher leaned in and said, "You've got talent." Ralph, for the first time, that shy boy, felt like he belonged somewhere. But could a single moment really change an entire destiny? After finishing high school, Ralph enrolled at Chelsea College of Art, believing he might become a painter. But during a presentation on the works of Diego Velázquez, something shifted. He realized he didn't want to paint the stage. He wanted to live on it. The decision to pursue acting began to take shape, even if the road ahead was anything but certain. Could a boy raised in rented homes across the countryside turn a dream of the stage into reality? The answer lies in the years that followed, years where quiet determination spoke louder than any introduction. There were years when Ralph Fiennes performed in an old rehearsal room with no pay, no audience, just endless lines repeated until his voice went hoarse. By day, he worked as a waiter. By night, he studied scripts in a flat without heating. Rejection came often, giving up felt close, and then one acceptance letter from the most prestigious drama school in England changed everything. But the role that led him to the Oscars wasn't a hero, it was a villain whose shadow still lingers in the minds of audiences around the world. After leaving Chelsea College of Art, Ralph stepped into the world of theater as an outsider with no name, only passion. He joined an amateur troupe in Fulham, where the stage was a converted training room and the audience sat on worn wooden benches. There was no paycheck, just the occasional scattered applause. But could those quiet nights lead to something greater? During the day, Ralph took whatever jobs he could waiting tables, cleaning studios, anything to cover rent. At night, he practiced lines until his throat gave out, curled up in a freezing apartment. His first role, as Romeo in Romeo and Juliet, may have been small, but for Ralph, it was the first time he truly felt alive on stage. During this chapter, Ralph met Alex Kingston, a fellow aspiring actress at RADA. They shared their dreams over humble dinners, but the weight of daily survival strained their young love. Doors continued to slam shut. He was rejected from drama schools again and again. One night, after a failed audition, he sat alone on a bench in London, wondering if it was time to walk away. Could a single letter change the course of a life? In 1983, Ralph was accepted into the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. There, he trained under strict instructors and was often the last to leave rehearsal, even when exhaustion set in. After graduating, he joined the Royal Shakespeare Company, the dream of every British actor. But reality was harsh low wages, supporting roles, and a cold apartment with no heat. In 1990, a small part in a film about T.E. Lawrence opened the door. 2 years later, his role as Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights caught the attention of Steven Spielberg. When Ralph was invited to audition for Eamon Goth in Schindler's List, he could hardly believe it. The role, a complex, deeply disturbing antagonist, would be his greatest challenge yet. That performance changed everything. From a shy young man once turned away at the door, Ralph Fiennes soared to an Academy Award nomination and emerged as a major force in Hollywood. It wasn't luck. It was the reward for years of quiet discipline and persistence in the shadows. Can a single role change an entire life for Ralph? It proved that silence, sacrifice, and discipline can lead to greatness. Behind the stage lights, there is a stillness, and it is in that stillness that Ralph Fiennes learned how to live with success in his own way. Quiet, unassuming, but no less profound. Unlike many of his peers, Ralph Fiennes does not live in a Beverly Hills mansion or a sleek Manhattan penthouse. He chose to remain in London, where the soft morning light and silence of the old streets remind a man of who he is. His home sits in Notting Hill, a classic neighborhood where strangers still greet each other in the mornings, and second-hand bookshops have somehow survived the crush of modern life. The house is estimated to be worth about $3 million, but to Ralph, it's not an investment. It's a retreat, his own private world to return to after each role. The facade is painted ivory white, with soft moss gathering near the roofline. The wooden front door is aged, with an iron handle curled like a vine. Step inside, and a narrow hallway with worn oak floors leads to the main room lined with ceiling-high shelves, dusted with time. Here rest his Shakespeare folios, German philosophy books, and tattered volumes of Rilke's poetry companions he often travels with during theater tours. In the living room, sunlight filters through French windows and falls on a weathered leather armchair where Ralph reads scripts or handwrites notes in blue ink. No wall-mounted TV, no modern sound system, just a vintage record player, and a few classical vinyls stacked nearby. The kitchen, surprisingly spacious, is not flashy but warm. A long wooden table holds a few bottles of Italian wine, a vase of dried flowers, and a hand-embroidered tablecloth passed down from his late mother. Here, Ralph entertains friends, cooks simple meals, or sits alone, listening to music under the soft glow of amber lights. Upstairs is where he writes. A small room, its walls covered in sketches and behind-the-scenes photos. A black and white photo of Ralph with Ian McKellen backstage. A worn draft of Coriolanus pinned crookedly to a corner. He doesn't need much, just a space to think. For Ralph, home isn't about putting on a show. It's where he removes the mask, where he allows himself to be vulnerable, where he steps out of his roles to become once again himself, quiet, sensitive, and unbothered by attention. And perhaps nothing captures that spirit of quiet refinement more than the car he chooses to drive. No Lamborghinis, no bulletproof SUVs or turbocharged sports cars. Ralph drives a classic Jaguar XJ from the late 1990s, painted deep gray, a model still cherished by those who admire British craftsmanship. Its current value is around $70,000. Depending on condition and originality, it's not the kind of figure that turns heads, but for Ralph, value lies in time, not price. The Jaguar is not built for speed, but it glides softly across the cobblestone streets of Notting Hill, where he often leaves early in the morning with a script resting on the passenger seat. Inside, the dark leather and slightly worn wood dashboard tell their own stories. No touchscreen, no smart systems. But each time his hand touches the steering wheel, memories return of his father, who once repaired cars behind their house after the rain, and taught Ralph. True elegance doesn't need to shout. There is no luxury garage, no car collection, no personal chauffeur when he travels. Ralph prefers the train over a private jet, especially for trips from London to Oxford or the Yorkshire countryside. Some fans have even spotted him in first class by the window, reading an old volume of Rilke in one hand, making notes with a fountain pen in a worn leather journal with the other. In one rare interview, Ralph once said, "I like old cars not out of nostalgia, but because they give you time to think while you move." He doesn't drive to impress. He drives to remember where he started and to stay close to his roots, no matter how far he's come. Even after standing at the Oscars or filming on international sets, Ralph Fiennes lives as if fame was never the goal. No social media, no sensational sound bites, and hardly a trace on the usual lists of celebrity fashion or extravagant living. He often begins his day with hot black tea and an hour of quiet reading. No assistants hovering, no constant phone alerts, just an old kitchen filled with morning light and a wooden table stacked with books, handwritten letters, and notes for his next role. Ralph follows no strict diet, hires no private chef. He cooks for himself simple pasta with herbs or a cheese sandwich during late-night writing sessions. For health, he doesn't visit a gym. He walks, something he's done since his days at the Royal Shakespeare Company. On filming breaks, he strolls through London's parks or heads to the woods when he returns to the countryside. He once said, "I'm not running from anything, but I do need silence in between it all." His working habits are equally unique. He writes by hand, with a fountain pen, on lined paper. He edits in red ink like an old-school teacher. And when preparing for a role, he dives into history, context, and philosophy, not just to act the part, but to understand it. That's why he only takes on 1 or 2 projects a year, often favoring theater over film when he feels the need to touch the ground again. When not working, he retreats to his Notting Hill home, reading poetry, listening to classical music, occasionally writing letters to friends, or scribbling down lines that come to him while doing the dishes. In a world that demands celebrities to be everywhere, Ralph Fiennes chooses to be absent so he can be fully present where it matters. Ralph Fiennes does not have a storybook home life as many would imagine of a famous actor. He has been married once, has no children, and has consistently refused to make his personal life public. But in that quiet refusal lies the depth of his relationships. His only marriage was to actress Alex Kingston, whom he met when they were young, sharing small stages and big dreams. They married in 1993, just as Ralph was gaining recognition from Schindler's List, but that same moment marked a turning point. His career took off, while love began to drift. The marriage lasted just 4 years. Their separation came quietly, no scandal, no court battles, only brief mentions of each other in interviews, as if they once shared the same stage, then walked off in opposite directions. Later, Ralph had a long-term relationship with actress Francesca Annis, 18 years his senior. They lived together for 11 years, away from the spotlight, like two artists bound by a shared rhythm. But in 2006, the relationship ended amid rumors of infidelity on Ralph's part, a chapter he never addressed, never explained, disappearing from public view for months. Since then, Ralph has never confirmed another relationship. No red carpet appearances with partners, no industry parties. Still, from time to time, he's been seen strolling through Italy with an unknown brunette, or dining in Vienna with an old friend. No captions, just a few candid photos and a smile that hints at quiet peace. Though he has no children, Ralph remains close with his siblings, a true artistic family, many of whom work in film, theater, and photography. They gather a few times a year, often in a countryside home where no one talks about work, just tea, books, and memories. He may not live in a perfect family, but he cherishes every thread that still connects, however fragile, however undefined. When the whole world is watching, can a single mistake destroy everything? In the mid-1990s, as Ralph Fiennes stood at the peak of his fame following Schindler's List and The English Patient, the British press began focusing on his private life almost as intently as his roles. And soon, it was what he didn't say that made headlines. His marriage to actress Alex Kingston ended in 1997 after fewer than 4 years. Around the same time, Ralph began a relationship with Francesca Annis, a fellow actress 18 years his senior. The overlap between his breakup and his new beginning sparked public curiosity. The media labeled him emotionally unstable, and Alex would later comment, simply, that she had been deeply hurt. Ralph said nothing. He offered no explanations, no rebuttals. He simply stepped away from the spotlight, returning to the stage and immersing himself in work. His relationship with Francesca Annis lasted 11 years, seemingly a rare stretch of stability. But in 2006, the press reported that Ralph had been involved with a Romanian singer. He never confirmed it, but the breakup followed soon after. Once again, his private life made the news, and once again, Ralph withdrew, offering no statements, making no public appearances for months. Just a year later, a flight attendant alleged that she and Ralph had a romantic encounter aboard an international flight. He denied the claim, but the story spread quickly. The public was left unsure of what to believe. Ralph, true to form, responded only through his work. During this period, he returned to the screen with The Reader, In Bruges, and a string of complex, shadowed roles. No one could say for certain what parts of his personal journey found their way into these characters, but something had shifted. There was a new depth in his gaze, a heaviness, a truth that seemed more lived in. In 2019, a few grainy photos appeared online. Ralph Fiennes seated beside an unknown woman in a small Italian town. No one knew who she was, and perhaps by then, it no longer mattered. Ralph Fiennes has never been one to explain what happened. He simply chose to live differently, quieter, more cautiously, and with greater depth after each stumble. When the curtain falls, what does a man leave behind for the world? For Ralph Fiennes, the answer isn't found in the number of awards, box office totals, or even his most iconic roles. It lies in the way he approached his craft and the way he chose to live once the applause faded. Across more than 3 decades, Ralph has left a lasting impression through unforgettable characters like Amon Goth in Schindler's List, Laszlo de Almasi in The English Patient, and Lord Voldemort in the Harry Potter series. But more than that, he has shown that an actor can live many lives on screen and still hold on to one unshakable core depth, calm and unwavering respect for every role he inhabits. Many actors chase the spotlight. Ralph seeks meaning. Even when stepping behind the camera, as he did in Coriolanus and The Invisible Woman, he gravitated toward difficult themes, complex characters, and emotions that defy easy labels. He was never afraid of losing the audience, only of doing something that wasn't truthful. Outside of his work in the arts, Ralph has quietly given back to the world. As a UNICEF UK ambassador, he has participated in multiple campaigns supporting children in crisis zones. He's also been a longtime supporter of the Prince's Trust, which helps disadvantaged youth through arts and skills training, not with headlines or grand fundraisers, but through steady presence and long-term commitment. With no children and no public family life, Ralph Fiennes chose to leave something else behind, a body of work that young actors can look to, not to imitate, but to understand that it is possible to live for art without losing yourself in the process. In a rare interview, he once said, "I don't want to be remembered as a symbol. I just hope that somewhere someone watches one of my performances and feels understood." Ralph will not leave behind a legacy of fame. He will leave something far quieter and perhaps more lasting, the kind of silence that speaks louder than noise. And in a world overwhelmed by noise, that may be the most memorable thing of all.